than they were accounting scams and other forms of mismanagement, gross overpayment of the top management, all the usual problems with poorly managed companies. But broadly speaking, Fannie and Freddie represented the good part of the housing market. They represented what they guaranteed, by and large, were the sound mortgages that had been made on the basis of good credit and on terms that conformed to the pattern of mortgage lending, which has been proved successful for decades. They were brought down by the larger environment, which was the subprime crisis, which is driven down, which was entirely abusive, entirely predatory in the sense that many lenders didn't care whether the borrowers who they were putting into houses could pay past the first 30 days, and certainly not past the first couple of years, fully expected that interest rates would go up, that these borrowers would not be able to convert their loans, sustain their payments once the teaser rates expired. They knew they were selling toxic waste, in other words, and that was the term for it in the industry. Well, what happens, of course, is when the subprime crisis hits and the foreclosures start multiplying and house values start falling, it's not just the value of the house that's been purchased on it with a subprime mortgage that get hits. It's everybody in the neighborhood, including a great many people whose mortgages have been guaranteed by Fannie and Freddie. And so you end up with basically a run on the bank, an increasing decline in the perceived capital base of these companies, and eventually it runs out.
And as well, when the sellers have to sell on a foreclosure, the assessed value of the neighborhood goes down, which means that even strong valued or strong mortgages lose their basis by whatever points in the neighborhood.
This is a social problem which will be with us for as much as a decade or longer. Mm-hmm. It took Texas 7 years to work out of a regional housing problem in the mid-1980s. It took Japan 14 years to work out of a national collapse in real estate prices between 1990 and 2004 or 5. And there's just no reason to think that we're we're probably, I would say, somewhere in between those two cases at the moment, but no reason to think that anything recovery here is going to happen by itself in any short period of time.
So I'm a high-paid economist, and I study history, and I look at different markets and what happened in different areas, and I'm working for the government, and I see this coming. Why don't I say something? Why don't I say, hey, look, this happened to Japan 8 years ago. How come I don't have enough wherewithal to move this something forward that shouldn't have happened?
Well, there were economists, usually low-paid economists, who were whistling past the graveyard on these matters, spitting in the wind. People like Dean Baker, who did say accurately that the housing situation was totally unsustainable. The people in the government are faced with a conflict of interest. They have a responsibility to call the shots as they see them, to make sure the accounting is correct, and to act and forestall disaster. On the other hand, they also under political pressure that they themselves may identify with, to make everything seem rosy, to make their own record look good, and in fact to help the economy continue to grow, because so long as the bubble was inflating, houses were being built, people were borrowing and spending on the basis of that perceived equity, and the overall economy would have been much weaker in 05, 06 if we hadn't had this bubble than was in fact the case.
And it keeps the general public from noticing the national debt, I'm assuming, also.
Everybody wants to kick the can down the road. Therefore, there is to a degree a conspiracy of silence about these things, because this was true of the internet bubble as well in the late 1990s. The person who says this is unsustainable, this is going to come to an end, you better get ready, is never popular.
John, do we have a future? I don't know.
I trade in futures, futures and commodities. We had, James, earlier on the show this summer, we had Reverend Graylin Hagler, who's the president of national ministers for racial, economic, and social justice, and we had Mark, what was his name, at the president and CEO of the Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name. And we had him on at the same time, and we were talking about the housing bill that was about to be signed into law. And I can remember at the time these two gentlemen telling me that this housing market was going to continue to deteriorate, that many of the 400,000 families that the bill was purporting to save would probably not be eligible for a lot of that aid, because for a lot of reasons, but mainly because they'd still be upside down in their mortgages and not meeting the lending requirements, and that this was a lie. The whole bill was a lie. That what was being purported to be this great panacea, that this infusion of $25 billion into the housing market, was going to turn things around, and the fall in housing prices would slow and reverse themselves, and everything would be honky dory. And they warned us of that. And as you say, the market continues to deteriorate. Why did we buy that bill of goods? Why did Congress buy that bill of goods back in August?
Well, I'll say a word in defense of Barney Frank, who I have a lot of respect for, and was a prime mover behind that bill. You do what you can, and he was, I think, early in the game in trying to get something done, but in a climate where the Congress as a whole is not mobilized, does not see the crisis as severe as it actually is, and where the administration certainly isn't prepared to concede that. So, and where there's a time lag, frankly, between when you draft the bill and the conditions at the time that it's actually put into effect. So events catch up with you in the process of legislating. I think the bill did some good. It helped some people, and it will help some people. But I don't think that if you went back to Chairman Frank right now, or to the major movers in the Senate, and said, was this the solution?